out of high school that weren't going to a 4-year university, you know, kind of I can't make it to my 9 a.m. class. Like,
Yeah.
why? Like, it's a 9, you know, I couldn't relate to those people coming right out of high school. That was a little bit tougher for me.
Yeah.
Because obviously I had a different perspective on life.
Yeah. And like, what do you think was different about your perspective from?
The big thing is you just kind of have an appreciation for the things that really matter, right?
Yeah.
The little things, the little minuscule things in life. You know, when you have to walk around and basically accept the fact that on my way to the shower and on my way back, if a rocket lands within here, I might end my life, right? And have to accept that. Okay, I still have to go take a shower, right? So the kind of those risks that you have. I mean, it's, you know, whether or not I got a full 8 hours of sleep last night before my college class, right, is kind of irrelevant, right? It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And that perspective has really stayed with me. I'm usually pretty good about not letting the little things get to me or bother me. Like, I can't control it. There's nothing I can do about it, so I'm not going to spend any emotional energy on it. And it's always kind of stayed with me. So, you know, some people that don't have the same experiences, they get worked up over stuff that they just can't control. I struggle with relating to them with that because it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever miss anything about military life?
yeah, my friends, my
Yeah.
buddies that I got to hang out with and got to know really well. But you know, I got that in other places, right? Because the thing that I've learned is every time that I've gone somewhere new for the military, I've always made new friends.
Yeah.
Right? I've always made new friends, and I have friends that I'm still in contact with that I've had, you know, various, you know, kind of times with. And honestly, some of my closest friends are the guys from the Guard, right? I mean, literally the closest people in my life are people that I serve with in the Guard. So yeah, I miss those guys, but at the same time, like, I don't dwell too much on missing those people because I know there are going to be other people where I'm going that I'm gonna make friends with and I'm gonna be close with.
Yeah. So what was the National Guard like when you?
The Guard life is the good life. That's kind of the saying that I have. The Guard life really is the good life because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You know, in early on, it was guard duty. It was it's always been 1 week in a month,
Yeah.
right? Maybe a couple weeks a year. And, you know, back then, I mean, it was all about hanging out with my buddies, right? We would get together, we'd do our thing during the day, and then at night we'd go to the bar and we'd go hang out and we'd party till 2 o'clock in the morning and then show up to drill the next morning at 7 o'clock going, oh, not smart. And that's what it was for a lot of years. It was a lot of fun. We just hung out as a group of friends and, you know, it was kind of collectively known, like drill weekend, it's, you know, friends that lived outside of the cities. I had a friend that lived in Mankato. I had a friend that lived in northern Minnesota, and so they would stay with me on drill weekends, and so we would just have a blast. I mean, it was the Guard. The Guard is the best, you know, way to serve in my opinion, just because you get to do those things, and then the Guard has been there for me when I've needed it, right? Changing careers, right? Mm-hmm. My first endeavor outside of leaving policing didn't work. Right, and I failed at it, and so I had a choice. Do I go back to policing? I knew I didn't want to do that. I need something in the interim until I find something else, and the Guard was there. And yep, you need a job? We got a job for you. Come work full time. Super.
Yeah.
Saved me, right? Literally saved me and my family. And so it's just kind of always there, right? If you need it, and then the other benefits of it. I mean, you still get access to the healthcare benefits. You still get access to the education benefits, which, I mean, I can't speak highly enough about. I mean, the education benefits alone, right, have allowed me to have a 4-year degree. I'm in a grad school program right now. I've never applied for a student loan before, ever. I mean, it's provided me with so much. So, yeah, the Guard life is the good life, as I say.
Yeah. Did your National Guard unit ever go on deployments?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, I've deployed twice with my Guard unit. And I would say, since I got there in 2005, I think we've had a deployment about every 18 months, right?
What?
Yep. And, you know, you cycle people in and out of it. I mean, we've had periods where we haven't had a deployment for, 2-3 years, but pretty regularly there was one on the books. If there wasn't a team actively deployed, there was talk of, hey, the next the next cycle we're going to be in the bucket. This is probably where we're going to go, that kind of thing. So I've deployed twice with that unit. I went to Saudi Arabia in 2008 with a really good group of friends. I had a blast on that deployment. That deployment was a blast. And then I didn't deploy again because that was in '08. I finished my schooling. I got hired with St. Paul Police as a police officer. So I was there, and then I met my wife, and then we started having kids. And so it was 2008, and then I didn't deploy again until 2019. I deployed to Qatar, the LUD Air Base in Qatar. So yeah, those are the only two. I probably had the opportunity to deploy 4 other times, just from my unit alone, which I didn't. I didn't take the opportunities.
Yeah.
So you can choose if you want to go or not.
Most of the time. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So what were those 2 deployments like?
Saudi Arabia was a cakewalk. From my first experience 4 years prior of living in a tent, right, showering in a tent, going to the bathroom in a tent, everything was in a tent, to Saudi Arabia 4 years later, we were at a base that was used as headquarters during the Gulf War for Norman Schwarzkopf, for the 4-star general that was running Desert Storm.
Yeah.
And the Saudis had built up this base, and so we were told, pick 2 of your closest friends, you're going to live with them. We got put up in these houses that were 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom houses, right? And there's 3 guys to a house. So we each had our own bathroom. I had 2 huge bedrooms, right? I mean, we lived in a house, that was made of, it was just gorgeous house. And so that was 6 months of that, and I was there with some of my closest friends. We developed a really good bond with a group of us. I think there was 6 of us that were just really close. We'd play, we'd get together, have like game night on our Fridays, and that was weird because there was a Chinese restaurant where you could order Chinese food. There was I called it the country club, right, where you could order food from, have it delivered to your house. It was an entirely different experience than my first deployment. It was not what you would call a deployment, right? It was a taxpayer funded vacation. It really was. I worked a lot, right? We worked 12-hour shifts, but it was not a deployment. There was a pool.
Yeah.
It was your off time that you're at the pool. It was ridiculous. And then 2019 was a different experience because in 04 and 08 I was single. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have any attachments. I was just living like footloose and fancy free. 2019 I was married. I had 2 boys, and so I missed them tremendously. That one was not as fun.
Yeah.
It was a good experience, just because of the work that I was doing. It was interesting. I got to do a little bit of traveling in the Middle East. I got to go up to Afghanistan for a couple of days before they shut the base down.
Wow.
Yeah, stuff like that. It was a good trip, but I was there by myself. So the other 2 I would deploy with a 13-person team. In LUD to 19 I was there by myself. As a single tasker, so I was bored a lot, spent a lot of time. But I've always kind of taken the mentality of personal development is a great opportunity during a deployment because you have so much time. So I studied for the GMAT to get into business school. Studied for that for like 6 months. Took the test right before I left and did really well on it, and got accepted to business school shortly thereafter. So it was good because I had a lot of time to study. So that's really what I did on that deployment was I studied my tail off.
Yeah.
So.
And that brief trip to Afghanistan, was that part of like a military operation?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
It was. So my role in that job was, so I do have a specialty I'm a weapons instructor. So I had to take some weapons up to Afghanistan to get a unit kind of fully up and running. So I went up there with another guy, and we got to do a little traveling around. But it was just 3 days. 3 days in Afghanistan. We hit up about 5 different bases in Afghanistan. So it was a fun little trip.
Yeah.
How did you guys get around? By car or by
No, by
helicopter?
plane.
Oh.
Plane. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So after you came back from that deployment, were you nearing the end of like your plans in the military?
No, I actually wasn't. Before I left, I had been accepted to fill in to basically move squadrons, move units to become a first sergeant. So
Mhm.
my role changed completely, and I knew I was going into that. Yeah, no, I came back from that 29. Well, I came back from that deployment. I got back to the United States January 25th of 2020. And so got back, got reacquainted with the family and kind of got some time, did some traveling with the family, things like that. And then I returned to work at US Bank on March 9th, went Monday, March 9th, 2020. And Wednesday afternoon that week, we got the email that says, hey, we're working from home indefinitely because of COVID. The world shut down.
Yeah.
So I got really lucky because a buddy of mine that I was deployed with, his 6-month deployment turned into 11 months because
Because
of the DoD travel ban. Nobody could come in to
Yeah.
replace him, and so he got stuck there, and he stayed there for almost 11 months.
wow.
Yeah.
Did they get any compensation for overstaying?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Wow.
Nope, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
And since you're still in the Guard, how much longer do you plan to serve there?
it's a good question. So I am coming up on 19 years in February. So, and I just received a promotion. So I just put on another stripe this in August this month.
Yeah.
And so I will now kind of be retained at least for another 2 years, maybe 3 years. And then there's one more stripe that I can put on. And if I put that on, they'll probably keep me for another 2 or 3 years, likely 3 years. So I'm looking at an additional probably 5-6 years before I'm, going to be really at the point of retiring.
Yeah.
So how do you get promoted like in national?
Yeah, so it was the position opened abruptly because the person that filled it last refused to get the COVID vaccine. And so he said, I'm going to retire instead. So he retired, he went away, and then that created a void in my old unit. So I was off as a first sergeant in another unit. That position opened up, and me and another guy, good friend of mine, both applied for it, and I got chosen for that spot. So I got brought back over.
Yeah. So, even though you're still in the Guard, how do you think like your time in the active Air Force and your 2 deployments after that changed you as a person?
For me, it's really has just kind of shaped how I've looked at the world ever since, and so it was awesome that I had those experiences so early on, right? Because I got to
I'm never sure if the announcements come in here, but we're closing in about 3.5 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. It really just has given me that perspective of what's really important in life, right? So I'm able to shut out a lot of the stuff that really is, I mean, it might seem important to some people. A good example is, the weather's bad on a day where you have an event scheduled. Nothing you can do about it. There's no sense in getting worked up about it. There really isn't. It's just adapt and, overcome the challenge. I mean, it's just it's allowed me to really kind of stay level-headed, right? And make me appreciate kind of the much more important things in life. I think it's helped me a lot as a husband, as a father, just to kind of understand what's really important,
Yeah.
If I don't have to worry about rockets every time I go to my car, I'll be okay,
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
How do you think it's like changed the course of your life and like what you've done?
It has, I would say it has allowed me to get to know a lot of people, right? And in this world, it's about who you know, right? I mean, it really is. Life is about relationships, and I've been able to develop a lot of really, really strong relationships. And to be completely frank, the Guard, a good friend of mine from the Guard that I've served with for 15 years actually became my manager at US Bank. He's the reason that I got into US Bank.
Oh,
Yeah, he was my he was my manager for 3 years. So one of my really good friends from the guard, and so he obviously paved that way. And then, you know, when I was getting out of law enforcement and starting to make my own path, he helped me through that. And so, you know, the relationships really are where it really kind of shaped my life, because it just has opened up so many opportunities for me throughout my life.
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
So I just have like a few more like
Yeah.
closing questions. If you could go back in time, would you tell yourself to join the military again?
100%,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
Is there anything you wish that more people knew about veterans?
Not really. I really don't. I mean, you know, the thing is, you know, you can always tell when veterans get together, right? There's just a lot of inside knowledge and a lot of inside jokes and things. You know, one of my favorite things about it is the bantering back and forth between people from different branches, right? I mean, it's a blast. And at the locker room, when I was in the locker room with the police department, right, there was a group of former Army guys, one Marine, and then I'm the one lonely Air Force guy, right, that everybody likes to pick on. Well, they were doing their rounds on me, picking on me for being in the Air Force, and I always embrace it, right, because I have my jokes back. But then one guy chimed in that had never served, and then everybody turned to him collectively and said, "You need to shut your mouth," because I don't remember hearing any of your stories, you know, from serving, right? And I think it's fine, right? People, you know, veterans, we kind of have our inner thing, right? And I think that's the best part. So
Yeah. So this is like a more lofty question, but do you think that like the public perceives veterans in an accurate way?
yeah, I mean, everybody kind of associates veterans with the veteran that they know, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. Yeah. Excuse me, Wonder Woman. So yeah, I think that's right. They're gonna perceive it according to the person that they know best, and that's, you know, I think that's good enough. You know? So
Yeah.
Cool.
And then
right.
one last question. Is there anything or like any kind of message you'd like to leave for the people who might watch this interview?
I don't know. It's an interesting thought. The one thing I would say is, you know, there are going to be opportunities in everybody's life that, yeah, we'll be done in a minute.
8 o'clock is when we close.
I'm
done
sorry.
now.
I'm so sorry. I would just say that, you know, everybody has opportunities in their life to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves, and you know, I'm glad to be a part of it. So,
Yeah.
Cool.
all right, guys.
Well, yeah. That's
Cool.
it.
Well, let's
Well-
get out of here before Wonder Woman pops